Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. Thanks for tuning in for another episode. Today, I'm going to tell you how you can catch at least double the amount of bass that you normally catch. In fact, for some of you out there, this could take your fishing completely to the next level. And what I mean by that is most anglers out there end up just going through the motions of fishing. They cast and retrieve, but they're not paying attention to what they're actually doing. And I'm here to tell you that if you do these 5 things the next time you go fishing, that you will dramatically increase the number of fish that you catch. Now, I'm sure there's a lot of you out there that are saying, oh, this isn't true. You can't help me catch that many more bass. But I'm here to tell you guys that if you do these 5 things, I will guarantee you catch more bass. In fact, if you don't, let me know in the comment section and you can call me a complete liar. But if you're not already doing these things, you're probably not catching nearly the number of bass that you should. So let's jump right into it. The first thing I want to tell you to do is vary your retrieve. And what I mean by that is don't cast and straight retrieve. I don't care what bait you're using, do not just cast and retrieve. Cast it out there, add some pauses, change the speed of your retrieve, even if it's a jig or it's a Texas rig. Don't just throw it out there and drag it back to the boat. Throw it out there, drag it a little, pop it up into the air, drag it a little faster, let it sit for 20 seconds, jump it up. I mean, just keep your bait moving at a irregular pace. That doesn't matter if it's a spinner bait, a topwater, a Texas rig. If you vary the retrieve of your bait, you're going to increase the number of fish that you catch because you're going to increase the number of different mechanisms within that retrieve that will trigger a response strike from the fish. One of the most important things that you can do to catching more fish is vary the retrieve that you're retrieving that bait in at. That's the first thing. The second thing is to cover more water. What I mean by that is fish a little bit faster, fish more spots, keep moving. Don't sit on a spot that's not productive and continue to fish it thinking that it's going to become productive. The majority of the time, you're not going to have waves of fish that just swim to you when you're not catching them already. So you're better off moving. And this doesn't matter if you're in a boat, a kayak, or on shore. Cover more water and you'll come in contact with more actively feeding fish. Gonna help you catch more fish. I can't stress that enough. A lot of the best anglers in the world fish way faster than any of you could ever imagine. You get in a boat with them and you're like, I cannot believe how fast you're fishing. That's the reality of it. A lot of us out there are trying to come in contact with more aggressive, actively feeding fish than trying to create fish that are not actively feeding and get them to bite. It's a lot easier to catch one that's hungry than one that's not looking to eat. So cover more water. Along the same lines of that, you want to fish more targets. So not just covering water to cover water, but fish more targets where you think the fish are either living or using as feeding locations or using as ambush locations. The point here is the more high percentage spots you fish, the better your chances are at coming into contact with actively feeding fish. So what do I mean by a high percentage target? Maybe it's a rock, maybe it's a brush pile, maybe it's a dock, maybe it's a bridge piling. The point is, you're probably going to find more fish and have a better shot at catching more fish if you're fishing the areas that they're utilizing. So if you're a bank angler and you're fishing where there's a bridge, the bridge is a high percentage area. If you look down the lake, maybe you can walk down the shoreline and there's a lay down tree that's, a couple hundred yards away. Well, you might want to fish your way there, but don't spend a ton of time fishing a do nothing bank between that bridge and that laydown. The same goes for somebody who's in a boat. If you're catching fish on brush piles, well, don't fish everything in between the brush piles. Just start fishing more brush piles. Like, that's the best way to utilize your time to catch more fish. So fish more targets. The fourth thing you can do to increase the number of fish that you're going to catch is to use smaller baits. Generally speaking, smaller baits lead to generate more bites. They still catch big fish, but what you end up doing is catching a lot more fish in general. Uh, Fish that tend to not be extremely aggressive and extremely hungry still will tend to bite a smaller, more finessey style bait. So if you're just looking to catch more fish, downsizing your bait's a pretty good option to do that. Generally speaking, if you're throwing a big swim bait, say a 5-inch swim bait, you're not going to get as many bites as you are if you're throwing a little 3.3 swim bait. Those small swim baits will get more bites. Now, your average size probably reduces, but a lot of times we just want to generate strikes. So think about downsizing your baits a little bit. The last thing I'm going to tell you that you can do to generate more strikes is to improve your casting accuracy. Generally speaking, most people do not realize how important it is to put your bait exactly where you want to put it. If you've got a stump and you land your bait on the stump, like right next to the stump, so it basically bumps the stump as it's falling, your chances of getting bit on that cast are dramatically better than if you landed 2 feet away from that stump on the cast. What you're doing is putting your bait in the strike zone for the fish, versus if your bait's 2 feet away from the stump, your bait could be outside of the strike zone. So if you land outside of the strike zone, that fish is not going to come eat your bait. But if you put that bait in the strike zone, you're going to get that fish to bite. So the tighter your bait is to the cover that the fish are using, generally speaking, the more bites you're going to get because your bait is in the strike window or that strike zone versus being outside of it. It's really interesting to me how often I'll run into people on the water who are surprised that I'm catching fish behind them if you're just going down, say, a row of docks. And the reality is, it's because they're not putting their bait where I'm putting my bait. So if you want to catch more fish, you just become a better and more accurate caster. That's a simple thing that you can do on the water or off the water. I mean, you can simply set up a coffee cup in your yard and cast into it. But the better you are at casting, the better you are going to be at putting your bait where the fish live, which means you're going to catch more fish. So I'm telling you guys, these are 5 simple things that you can do to catch a lot more fish on the water. And most people are not doing this. So if you do these 5 simple things, you're going to separate yourself from other anglers on the water, and you're going to get more bites. It is kind of that simple in a lot of instances. The hard part is recognizing that and implementing it while you're out on the water. But let me know, guys. Maybe I'm nuts. Maybe I'm nuts. But if you think that this does help, or you do this in the future and it does help or doesn't help, let me know in the comment section. I'd love to know if it is actually helping you guys catch more fish. I know it is for me. So thanks for watching, guys. I appreciate all the support. Stay tuned. We'll have a new video coming out tomorrow.